Hello, everyone. I'm LaMonica Peters, and it is an absolute pleasure to be here to host the 2026 Coro California Women in Leadership Luncheon. Now, I'm going to say that one more time, the Coro California Women in Leadership Luncheon. Now, for those of you who have been to this event before, you may notice a small change in the name, and that's because there's been a big change at Coro. This past fall, Coro Southern California and Coro Northern California came together to become one unified organization, and that would be Coro California. Now, this is more than just a name change. It's a declaration and a commitment to building leadership across our entire state with one mission. I want to give a congratulations again to everyone on the board, the staff, alumni, supporters who worked so hard to make this happen. This is a big deal, and today feels like the perfect moment to celebrate it. None of this would be possible without the people who support the shared mission of Coro and invest in our communities and their leaders. A heartfelt thank you to today's luncheon sponsors, with deep gratitude to our platinum, gold, and silver sponsors. Your support doesn't just fund this event, it fuels the future where women are working across sectors and they have the tools and the networks and platforms to lead boldly. Now, as I walked around this lunch reception, it was a pleasure getting to know some of you, to hear more about why you're here today, and I heard common themes of empowerment, leadership, and learning. Now, what brings me here today is my role as a reporter with the LA Local, where I cover, thank you, hey, thank you. I am a reporter with the LA Local, and I cover Inglewood and South LA. I'm also the host of California and Me. It's a public affairs program that airs on Me TV, and we highlight local nonprofit organizations and the work that they do. I also recently launched a podcast. It's called Black LA Uncovered, and it's dedicated to the people, places, and stories that shape the soul of Los Angeles. Now, before coming home last year to LA, I grew up here in LA. I was a television news reporter for 14 years, and I've had my work aired on ABC News Live, CNN, Fox Live Now, CBS, you name it, Spectrum. I was a part of that, and I'm really proud of those accomplishments. My career has been built on the belief that the right story told the right time can open a door in a way nothing else can. And today, that's exactly what we're here for. Stories from leaders across LA's boardrooms, classrooms, government corridors, and frontline organizations. Women who know what real leadership is, and it isn't about the title on your door. It's about what they do when they walk through it. And with that, it brings me pleasure to introduce Jennifer Keith to the stage. She is a Coro Women in Leadership Program alum, and she will moderate today's outstanding panel. You can read more about Jen's impressive professional background using the code on the front of your program, and there you'll find the bios of all of today's speakers. But today is about going deeper as humans, so I'll share something that you won't see when you use that QR code, and that is that Jennifer walked onto the national crew team her freshman year of college. Jen, the stage is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, thank you so much, LaMonica, for that kind introduction. Before I get started, I just wanted to take a moment and look out at all of you. I mean, look at this room full of amazing women. We don't see that often enough, and I just want to celebrate that this is one of my absolute favorite events. I see so many friends and friendly faces out there, so thank you for including me in this today. I also want to thank Natalie Samardzian for inviting me to moderate this conversation, and definitely thank all of our panelists for showing up and providing us with their time and wisdom. As LaMonica mentioned, I just want to reiterate, you'll find a QR code that links to the formal speaker bios. So to make the most of our time together, I won't be doing long introductions, but please, please read over the amazing accomplishments of our panelists today. It'll inform how truly lucky we are to benefit from their wisdom. So before we kick off the panel, I wanted to share a little bit about how I ended up a graduate of the Women in Leadership program. I was wrapping up a meeting with about 20 other people, and as they started filing out of the room, someone came up to me and tapped me on the shoulder and said, "I noticed that every time you made a comment, you started off by saying, 'I'm sorry.'" I know there's other people. I see that people relate. "And when you did speak, you said it very quickly, as if what you had to say was not worth holding space for." This wasn't 15 years ago. It wasn't 10 years ago. It was barely 6 years ago, nearly 20 years into my career. And I thought that I had overcome my imposter syndrome or the need to constantly be calibrating between being too much or too little, but I still had deep-seated habits that held me back from stepping into my full potential. And I signed up for the Coro Women in Leadership program the very next week. So what I gained from that course wasn't just a set of tools that helped me in my leadership journey, although those were extremely helpful. But what I really walked away with was the ability to show up as my full, authentic self in every space, not just the spaces where I was already comfortable. And I walked away knowing that my voice mattered and that my contributions had value. I'm the mother of 2 children. And sometimes I look out at the world that we're handing over to them, and I think, oh my gosh, I am so powerless to change it. But then I remind myself that very few things in life are truly inevitable, which means that so many more things are possible than we let ourselves believe. And that is why Coro matters. That is why this program matters. Coro is training the next generation of leaders who can create change at scale. And the Women in Leadership program sits at the very heart of that work. Because making an impact, real impact, absolutely cannot start with saying, "I'm sorry." So today, I have the great joy of hosting a panel of women who have lived out the truth that a great many things are possible. They've done this across different disciplines and shown us the courage, the brilliance, and the authenticity that sits at the center of what Coro means by leadership. I have no doubt that this conversation will inspire you, and I hope you walk out of here with a little something to carry into your own leadership journey. So please join me in welcoming our panelists. We'll give them a round of applause, and then I will call them up one by one. So just like LaMonica, I will also have the pleasure of giving one off-bio fact. So I will start with Jennifer Ferro, president of KCRW, who just last month ran her very first half marathon as a pledge in her knee surgery recovery. I'm so in awe. Next up, we have Dr. Maria Rosario Jackson, professor at Arizona State University and former chair of the National Endowment for the Arts. Maria, well, we didn't get the fun fact. So the fun fact for Maria is that she's a bird watcher and a gardener, and although she's an LA native, she still likes to be a tourist in her own town. Next, give it another round of applause. Next up, we have Brenda Solórzano, who is president and CEO of the California Endowment, and she carried the Olympic torch in the 92 games in Salt Lake City. Finally, please welcome Julie Uhrman, CEO and co-founder of Angel City Football Club. If Julie wasn't working in sports, she'd be a Broadway producer.
There you go.
Amazing.
Why not?
Yes.
Both sound challenging.
So I'm going to mosey on over here for our discussion. I will do individual questions for each panelist because you all have such unique professional and personal experiences. And before I start with you, Jennifer, I have to say 89.9 is always the #1 preset in my car. So I'm a huge fan. So you started at KCRW as a volunteer, and you worked your way through a number of different positions at the company, and now lead the organization. Can you talk a little bit about that progression and how it informs your leadership style?
Well, you imply that was planned, but as I talked to LaFonso over there when we were getting mic'd up, I'm a stayer. And so I don't know if you guys, there was a New York Times article recently about the choice and like the suppression of choice, and basically like choose a thing and stop thinking about it. That's basically how I've lived my life. I love KCRW, and it always felt like and still feels like a new thing every day, a new surprise, new excitement. But I just stayed where I was. And I know, I think I'm ambitious, but I don't know. I didn't run around and try other things. So it worked out for me, I guess. But I do, when I give advice to people, I'm like, oh yeah, I have some advice, career advice for you. Just stay where you are. You know, it's not that motivating.
Thank you. Just a quick follow-on question. I mean, people say would consider this an atypical path to leadership, but what about it really it gives you an advantage, having been homegrown through the organization?
Well, I've done every job. So if someone is like, I need more time, I'm like, I know exactly how much time that job takes. And I will do anything. Like, I will fold up chairs, I will call people, I will do anything. And I think, I like to think that it has, it just anchors me and gives me like a lot of confidence, but it also gives confidence, I think, to my leadership. Because when people ever question like, oh, I don't think this is, right for KCRW, I'm like, okay, like you can talk to me about this, but honestly, I've been here for my whole life, and its reputation is my reputation. So I really come from a place of authority.
Thank you. So we're going to stay in the topic of arts, and I'm going to move on to Maria. You're recognized as one of the most impactful leaders in the National Endowment of Arts history. You talked about embedding culture and arts in civic initiative and how these can move social change. Can you talk a little bit more about how you've seen that historically and potentially also on a go-forward basis?
Sure, thank you for the question. It's an honor to be here with all of you today. Just want to say that before offering some thoughts. I think, so my root field is urban planning, and I think about and have worked on what does it take to build healthy communities where all people can thrive, where all people can deliver their gifts. And early in my career, I did a lot of evaluation and research on social programs and public policy. And some of you may be familiar with the idea of theories of change. Sometimes people hire consultants and they imagine how change will happen or what it takes to move the needle on something. And I was involved in that for a while. My take on communities has always been that comprehensive approaches are really important. And it was becoming more and more clear to me that there are some fundamental things that don't allow you to get to where you want to go. And some of that has to do with our ability to understand our interconnectedness, our ability to embrace the gift of stewardship for the planet and the communities where we live and for each other, to build communities of care, if you will. And you can't do that if you can't see each other's humanity. And I think that the arts, and I don't think about the arts only in the consumption of professional art way of thinking about it, although of course that's a very important part of how we should understand cultural participation. But in addition to that, it's about making, doing, teaching, learning, tending to your creative self. And I think that when we do that, when we embrace that agency, that creativity, that impulse to demonstrate your humanity and see that of others, that in fact is a precondition for all of the other things that we need to do. And that you can't actually get to where we say we want to go without that. And I think that the arts are therefore essential right? That they are inextricable from our ability to progress.
Thank you. That's a beautiful sentiment. Yeah. Brenda, moving on to you. We are in a time of very difficult conversations and polarizing opinions. You've mentioned that you like to create psychologically safe spaces in your organization where people can show up authentically. Can you talk about how you've been able to create that for you and your organization and the stakeholders?
Yeah, so also an honor to be here today. See so many friends and colleagues in the audience. And now I can't hide the fact that I was an Olympic torch runner. Always my secret fact, and now 500 people know that that was the case. So I have had a long journey to my leadership pathway. And many of the places where I started out were really unsafe places for me. Unsafe because what drove the culture was power, ego, people climbing over each other to get to the top, not a lot of sharing, not a lot of trust. And I thought to myself, there's got to be a different way to lead an organization. And through my career, I have learned that when you name the values of the culture you want to build, that is how you actually start creating a more psychologically safe workspace. So for me, some of the key things that are part of building that psychological safety is ensuring that we have a work culture that is loving. We have a work culture where we can play. We have a work culture where we can engage with each other and build relationships, because we're more than just fill in the blank of the title. We are people with whole experiences, and we don't just show up as our title, we show up as who we are. So you really can't build that psychological safety unless you dedicate time and intentionality to building that kind of culture. Oftentimes I tell people that I spend about a third of my time building culture with our staff, building culture with our board, building culture with our community partners. It takes time because it is relational. So when I first got to the California Endowment, I spent time with every single employee. I got to know them, about their family, about their kids. I opened the door, I walked the hallways, I created that connection. I then built a set of principles that are grounding how we're trying to build the culture at the California Endowment. And I do what I say I'm going to do, because the other thing about psychological safety is that the minute you break that trust or you behave in ways that are inconsistent with the values and the culture that you're trying to build, that's when you get called out. Right? And it has happened. I'm not perfect. People have called me out on, you're not being loving right now, Brenda. You're not being fun. But I appreciate that feedback, because that to me is a signal that I'm creating the space in which people can show up fully and authentically who they are. And it's contagious. When you actually start building this kind of culture with those that are close to you in terms of your closer team, and they can go out and build that into their teams and their departments, all of a sudden you have an entire ecosystem. But the work never stops. You can start doing this work, but you got to keep doing it. It's never ending. And I think that's the part that we sometimes lose sight of, that it is not an end, it is a journey of building psychological safety in an organization.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing so vulnerably about that topic. I think a lot of us would hope for that in our own organizations as well. Moving to Julie, I saw a billboard for Angel City on my drive up,
which was
nice.
It's working.
It is working. So I have a question for you. You set out to prove that mission and profit can coexist in women's sports. And can you talk a little bit about how you were able to accomplish that goal and how other leaders in the room can do the same in their organizations?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for having me. It's the concept of doing well and doing good. It starts with having a really clear goal, and then what follows quickly is intention. So when Natalie Portman and Karen Nortman and I came together, my co-founders, to build Angel City Football Club, it wasn't about building a women's football team. That was part of it, obviously the most important part. It wasn't about winning matches. It wasn't about winning rings. We had a larger goal and mission, and for us that was to use sport and entertainment to drive to equity. How could we use the platform of our community, of our sports team, of our incredible ownership group, of our players, of this team to drive to equity? And we defined equity very broad. Gender equity, pay equity, visibility equity. We were also realistic in knowing that that would take time. So it's all about the little steps that you need to take to actually accomplish that end goal. So if the goal was to drive to equity, then the second part is, what is the representation of that? How can you show proof that you are succeeding or taking those steps? And we thought about it from 2 points of view. One is impact. So how do we have a positive impact in our community that drives equal access and opportunity for women, for minority businesses, for youth, for gender expansive youth? How can we give them access to sport, and specifically a sport that is a pay-to-play sport that is really expensive? How can we make the community part of it? So that was one part, and it was funny because when we went out to raise money, it wasn't very easy. We were 3 females, which was unheard of in sports in the first place. Add to the fact that none of us have sports experience, made it a little bit harder. Add to the fact that there are 11 professional sports teams here in LA, makes it significantly harder. 2 professional men's team, you're a women's team. The WNBA had been around for 25 years and nobody cared. Right? So we had a lot against ourselves. So the first part of our pitch was, hey, we want to lead with impact. We want to drive to equity. And the first question out of their mouth was, well, are you a charity? Like, is my $25,000 or $50,000 the equivalent of buying a table? And we're like, no, we want to lead with impact, but we also want to drive to profitability. And it was this idea of we want to build a different type of organization where mission and capital can coexist, where we don't sacrifice one for the other. And that's where the intention comes in. And what our hypothesis was, our thesis was, doing good will actually drive more revenue. Because we can better connect with our community, we can better connect with our fans, we can better connect with our partners, and together we can create a return, a result that is actually unheard of in sports. Majority of sports teams don't make money. 90% of the sports teams in the world don't make money. They're vanity projects. But we said, look, if we can lead and build the organization differently, i.e. leading with impact, with a focus to driving to profitability, and we're successful on both, now we've changed the entire narrative of sports. Like, there's no reason in the world that you wouldn't do good because you know you can do well. And we were really intentional about that and not, again, sacrificing one for the other. So that's the part that gets really hard, right? Because when you're focused on driving revenue, you sometimes want to forget about the community work because it takes time or money or manpower. And vice versa, when you're driving for impact, right, you're spending money. So it's like, how does that drive revenue on the other side? And for us, we were just we had high conviction and saying, whenever we do good, we're gonna tie that to profitability. And we wouldn't do one without the other. And that's hard, especially when you go into an organization. If it's not there from day one, changing that behavior is hard. But for us, a very simple example is on the sponsorship side, because we led with our values, because we built this 10% sponsorship model where we give back to the community, we were able to partner with people that were values aligned. So they wanted to give back in the community. They wanted to be part of something that was 360 days a year, not 15 games a year. And the net result of that was we were able to charge higher sponsorship revenue. And we were able to bring in sponsors that never supported women's sports or never supported sports, so we weren't necessarily competing with another team or another club or maybe an athlete sponsorship. So we actually have proof points to this day that by doing good, by giving 10% away, by building an equity platform, we have actually driven more revenue, which has not only resulted in revenue and our ability eventually to be profitable, but in our valuation as well.
It's amazing. And I'm going to go a little off script here and just say, do you see other organizations emulating what you've done? Because your growth over the last 5 years has been unheard of.
Thank you. The short answer in the US is the answer is no. And it's actually really sad because we have a playbook. And I think there's a lot of fear, right? I have to drive revenue. I have to drive profitability. So there's a lot of fear. When we announced this 10% sponsorship model, we had team presidents and team CROs call us literally saying, what are you doing? You are giving away money before you even have it. And do you know how expensive it is to run a team? And do you know how, and we're like, maybe we know, maybe we don't. But we believe that this is going to drive outside returns. And it did. In Europe, actually, we're seeing more of that because when clubs are starting from scratch, it's easier to build it sort of into the DNA of the club. We've seen people do different types of programs, but what we didn't want to do is we're building a community from scratch. We wanted to be authentic. We wanted to create real connections with the community. And if we said that we were driving with impact and wanting to give back, doing a Habitat for Humanity one day a year or beach cleanup one day a year didn't actually feel authentic, didn't feel real, didn't feel like we were really showing up to make change. And so now, I mean, we put over $4 million to work. Like the stats are pretty incredible. And so part of what we do a lot and part of what my PR team does a lot is talk about that impact because we want to show people that it's actually benefiting the bottom line and you actually feel really good about what you do every year because it's more than just winning or losing. Like when you lose that game, which unfortunately we do occasionally, you know that there's a bigger purpose for being.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, a round of applause for this first round of questions. Thank you. It's apparent you are all driving so much impact, and we're going to continue the conversation for these last 20 minutes. One question, which will go around down the panel. Feel free to add to each other's comments, trying to make it a little more conversational. So this is a twofer. What is the best advice you've received in your career, or alternatively, what is the one piece of advice that you've received that was completely wrong for you? So you can answer either or both. And we'll start with you, Brenda.
Well, you would imagine that I would have gotten it from some business class or some mentor or some leadership book, but it actually came from a very, very wise woman, and that is my mother. Mm-hmm. And she shared this with me when I was very young, and it has stuck with me throughout my career. First of all, she always taught us to do what's right and to always make decisions that were good. But the words she shared with me, I'm going to share it with you in Spanish first. No eres una monedita de oro que todos te van a querer, which translates to you are not a little gold coin that everyone is always going to love. Mm-hmm. And that has been something that has been driving me as I make decisions that I know are hard, but that are right, but that are not going to make everyone happy. And as long as I know that I'm making those decisions for those reasons, then I can stand tall and proud and have my mom's voice in my ear.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Julie, how about you?
Best piece of advice, ask why. I think there's a real lack of curiosity today. I think people are so fast to get to the next level, the next step in your career, are so quick to offer advice without asking why and being truly curious first. The worst piece of advice I got from a very good friend, he said it was, Julie, you wear your emotions on your sleeve, and that's a bad thing. You wear your emotions on your sleeve, and everyone knows what you're thinking and feeling. Now, in boardrooms, that cannot be sometimes that's not a good idea. I like my Wi-Fi's not working. I have to go off camera because my face shows everything. I use that trick a lot. But he made it seem like it was a negative. And I think actually one of my superpowers is my passion, enthusiasm, my excitement, my energy. So stamping that down for a short period of time, because I respected this individual, made me less of who I am, and it took away one of my superpowers, so I disagree with that.
As a fellow person who shows everything on their face, I very much sympathize, but also agree. So, Jennifer, how about you?
Well, I think the worst piece of advice, which I didn't take, was you should go to law school. I was like, oh, thank you. Like, never, I'll be doing that, never. I think, the best advice I got was by example, and that was the founder of KCRW, Ruth Seymour. She was a fearless person, and she could take anyone on the table to argue with, and she'd never back down and never allowed herself to be interrupted. And she also did not care what anyone thought of her. And I am not that. I do care what people think about me, but it was important to see that example of the freedom of what that's like. To really be able to make a decision that is the right thing, but really knowing, like, I don't care if you don't like it. It's like a kind of empowering thing that I check in for when I have to make really tough decisions. So I wish, I don't know if it's great to walk around not caring what people think. I do think there is a function in correcting our behavior by trying to be well-liked or at least respected. But anyway, it was great to watch.
Thank you. And finishing off with you, Maria.
So the best piece of advice was from a mentor, and he told me, wherever you are, you're not there to have a job, you're there to do your job. Mm-hmm. And it had to do with figuring out what your purpose is, and then being able to discern where you're supposed to be. And also to have the courage to ask from time to time, is this still where I'm supposed to be? So I always value that, the invitation to check in with yourself and to check to see if you are where you're supposed to be. I think that's one piece of advice that I've always kept with me. And it's extended to things that I've been able to say to others as they're crafting their own career. The kind of work that I do is often there isn't a job for it because it's typically hybrid work. It's arts and health or arts and community development, and it's kind of betwixt and between, and it can be easy to fall through the cracks. And sometimes, particularly in higher ed and work with students get excited that there's an opportunity to feed their creativity and also do something else, right? And we can imagine a role in the world for them, and they'll say, well, can I get a job doing that? And the answer is there may be a job out there for that, but the reality might be that you have to reinterpret the opportunity that is before you, if you can, or you're going to have to make it up. Mm. And that's not always easy, and it requires a culture of possibility, right? It requires having the impulse to see possibilities sometimes when it's not obvious.
They're so inspiring. I feel like we need a notebook to be writing all of these down, so thank you. Switching gears a little bit, I think it's an understatement to say we live in a polarized political and social environment at the moment. And the question is, how do you maintain the mission of your organization when there's a lot of external pressure that may move against that? I know I sit on boards of organizations where even having certain words on the website is going to prevent you from getting funding, and particularly in such visible roles. How do you handle that challenge? And we'll start with Julie.
It's challenging. We consider ourselves a values-based organization, and so when something happens that challenges what we believe our values, we feel the need to speak up. And having said that, we're really intentional about how we do that. We draw attention, we like to educate, and then we like to drive people to action. Sometimes that's donations, sometimes that's actual work, sometimes it's to learn more. I think one of the challenges when you're values-based is people expect you to stand up for everything, right? And when you don't, what do? The other challenge is your organization may have a set of values, but it's not to say that everybody who's part of your organization, whether it's our staff or our team, believe in it. So how do you even manage the internal politics of, we're going to make this statement or we're going to do this, and then you have people internally that think you shouldn't or you didn't go too far. The actual harder part is when they think you didn't go too far. At Angel City, we've been tested a number of times over the last 5 years. The most recent was the ice raids last summer. And as you can imagine, being a football club whose goal is to create a product for everyone and to unite people through the great sport of football, a large percentage of our community were immigrants. And when the raids were happening and the marches were happening downtown, we have, it always happens, we had a football game that weekend. And so we immediately thought about how do we create a safe space? Like, how do we create a welcoming, safe space? And then how do we support our community who, regardless, don't feel safe or are scared? And it was at a really interesting time in the sport, specifically in here in Los Angeles, because no organization spoke up. You know, we were looking to some of the more established sports teams in LA to see how they would address the topic and speak up. And to your point, you know, you put a bullseye on your back. Like, it's, you know, it's a very challenging time to decide if you, to or not to. And we were very, we moved very quickly and recognized that, you know, not only are we a city of immigrants and a community of immigrants, but we're a team of immigrants, and that's not only our staff and our players, and we would not exist without. And so, thank you. And so we were very quick to make a statement along those lines, just sort of pointing that out and supporting it, and then drawing people's attention, again, from an education standpoint, to a legal organization to know your rights. So we were very intentional about not, you know, putting ourselves out there to say what was right or wrong, but to give you the tools to be educated. We were the first organization, sports organization, to do it. LAFC, super proud of them. They followed with the statement as well. And then we sort of, again, sports is a platform, and it seems to be a platform that gets used a number of times for, you know, political statements or messages, and we wanted to show our community that we were for them. People like to use social media as the place, and that's not enough. And it's also fleeting because not everyone sees it. So we ended up kind of leaning in and created Immigrant City Football Club.
Wow.
Which is, thank you, really synonymous with Angel City. And, you know, we made T-shirts, because that's what we do. We made T-shirts that said Immigrant City Football Game, but 100% of the proceeds went to this nonprofit to educate people about their legal rights. And I mean, we sold over, I think it was like over 30,000 T-shirts in all 50 states and different countries. Like, I will travel around the world and I will see people that wear that, and it's just such a beautiful meaning of community. And the part that I'm really proud of, it doesn't say Angel City Football Club on it. It doesn't say the NWSL. It's more about, like, kind of if you know, you know, but we're coming together. And so it's hard, and that was one of the moments where I think we really nailed it as a club. You know, I will say we're not perfect. You know, when Israel and Palestine had their the issues back in October a couple of years ago, like, that was a really hard one for us to manage, and we did not do that one as well. But that was one of those moments where, you know, we thought silence was just as loud as saying something, and I don't think anybody kind of nailed what it was to say, but we tried.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You tried, though.
We did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Maria, how about for you?
Yeah, it can be hard. It can be really hard. And I think I mean, the question to ask yourself is, what is the most impactful thing that you can do based on who you are and the perch you have at the time? And sometimes the work is to speak up and speak out and be loud. And sometimes the most important thing or the most strategic thing is to do quiet work. And both matter. So I think there is a judiciousness about what does it take to meet the moment, and based on who you are and what you have to offer, what is your role now? I think the other part that is very clear to me, especially having come out of public service in the recent administration, is that progress is not always a straight line, and it doesn't have a steady beat, but you keep looking to make sure that the direction is the way it needs to be, even if it isn't that straight line. And there's something about recognizing that for some of us, the work that we're committed to is generational work. And how do you do your part when you realize that it is generational work? How do you learn how to share it, or how to take it on when someone else can't do it from wherever they are anymore, or where you can't do it from wherever you are? How are you nimble and strategic enough to pass it on because you know it needs to happen somewhere.
It's beautiful. I feel like that needs a round of applause. Such wisdom. Thank you. Brenda, how about for you?
So I think this has personal and professional components for me. Personally, I've always been driven to look for places to work that are values aligned for me. I feel like I do my best work and I can show authentically up in a way that I can live my values if I align with whatever place I am. And that's actually what drew me to the California Endowment. And the California Endowment is unique in this time of high politicized political environments, in that we're one of the few types of organizations that don't have to make money, don't have to beg for money, don't have to keep stockholders happy, aren't going to get voted out of office. And so we're in this unique position to take advantage of this role that we have and say the things that need to be said, name the things that need to be named unapologetically. But that can be scary in this particular world because I am an individual and I worry about my kids and I worry about my family and, you know, the crazies out there. But I also know that I am surrounded by a group of people, i.e. my board. And one of the things I did when I first got to the endowment, which was just a few weeks before the election, was had a conversation with them around, we are going to enter this really political, hard moment in our country's history. How do you want me to show up as a leader? I need you to help me understand how I'm going to stand in this moment publicly, because I don't want to be misaligned with you as I lead the California Endowment. And we went through an exercise and landed in a point of the California Endowment saying we are unapologetically going to be bold and courageous in this moment. We're going to double our giving. We're going to support the organizations that really are on the ground, who I see out here doing the hard work every day. We are going to be a bully pulpit. We're going to write, we're going to talk about the things that need to be said, and we're going to model that for our colleagues, because there are too many folks in philanthropy that have taken a step back at this particular moment. We have to be on the right side of history, and that comes sometimes with a price. But going back to what my mom said, always do the right thing. And at this particular moment, the right thing is to stand up.
Thank you, Brenda. Jennifer, you have such a large platform. I'm very curious how you navigate this.
Yeah, I mean, I think for public media, we were the one with the bullseye, and we lost our funding across this nation. And, you know, for 57 years, there were public parks, public libraries, and public media. They were public goods. That's what we are. And we became a target of this administration. And it resulted in the loss of funding and the rescission of funding, which, you know, was a pretty dramatic move by Congress. And I think being in the media environment and watching commercial colleagues not only not have courage, but literally not say things out of fear of retribution or regulation. I think it's so I'm going to take this less from the personal side of like wanting to speak up. I mean, I think on that aspect at KCRW, my thing to my staff is like, do the work. If there are injustices, then let us uncover them. We have the platform. So I feel like we're lucky that we don't have to debate about writing out a statement, we just tell a story. So that's really powerful for us. But I think, you know, we're at this moment where we are not free in public media from regulation. I mean, there is an FCC investigation that started literally the day after the inauguration, looking at how to really kind of creatively, I have to give it to this administration, they actually know their stuff. They're gonna try to cut us off at the knees with some of our funding sources. So relying on our public more than ever to support us is what we have to do. And honestly, I'm like, bring it on, because we're gonna tell the truth, because we have the ability to do that, where some people may not, or some organizations may not, out of fear. And I think the fear is genuine and real. And what we are seeing is the retribution is limitless, and it's can be kind of quiet because so much is going on, you don't even realize what's going on. So I feel like public media in this moment has an obligation and a freedom to stand up and, again, tell the truth. And, not like, oh, this is your truth and this is my truth. No, there's some actual real truths, and we're going to tell them. And so, yeah. So in a weird way, I feel like more empowered than ever to have this target on our backs. And I'm like, bring it. Because I know that, there's some of you in this room, and there's hundreds of thousands across this country, millions, who are going to stand up for public media. I mean, we're the nerds. We just tell good stories and educate children. But there's people who are saying don't attack public media. We need it. So I feel really empowered. But I think it's critical to have that discussion because, people talk about Nazi Germany and who didn't speak up and who let these things happen. You can look in our own history. You don't have to go to Germany. Look in the United States and see all the times that people didn't speak up in the face of justice or injustices. And they still went to birthday parties and had fun and, all that stuff. And it's like, you look back and read history and you're like, how could they do that? How could they be laughing in this photo when all this stuff, Jim Crow, was happening? Well, I don't want to be, hysterical, but I do think it's time for us to think about that right now.
Thank you. All right, we're getting down to time, but I want to sneak in this question. Over the next 2 years, LA will be hosting the Super Bowl, the World Cup, the 2028 Olympic and Paralympic Games. What do you want the world to know about LA, and what do you think needs to change before the cameras and the visitors arrive? So we'll start with you, Jennifer.
I'm going to go super basic. I think if we cleaned up the trash, I would feel better. I was just in Japan and in France, and it was so clean, and the signage was lovely. And LA's beautiful, and I feel like I'm just around people all the time who are like, oh, LA is a trash heap. And I'm like, oh, that's easy. We can pick up trash. But I want people I want Angelenos to be left with a legacy of feeling like Angelenos, of seeing their neighbors and saying, oh, yeah, these are my people. That's what I'm most excited about.
Thank you. Brenda.
I want them to see what I have seen in the last year and a half that I have lived in LA, which is LA is a diverse, lots of different communities, lots of different places to go visit. You can see the world in LA. And it's not sort of what gets portrayed on television, right? It's not the Hollywood studios and the beaches. Sure, it's part of that. But the complexity and the beauty and the diversity of LA, I hope is something that this world sees.
It's wonderful. Maria.
I agree with Brenda. I think that Los Angeles is an amazing place. And being born and raised here and then living away for a really long time and coming back, you appreciate it yet again. Mm-hmm. And there's something about the last 2 years with the ICE raids and fires and attempts at cultural erasure and all of this stuff. There's something about being able to demonstrate that love lives here. That feels really important, that in this diversity, in this complexity, there's love and there's care.
It's beautiful. We'll round it out with you, Julie.
I don't want to follow you anymore.
I know.
You need to change this order.
Sorry.
Now my answer is just like, crap. Well, let's fix traffic, because I think we'd all like to get to the games. And to say something a little different, I want people to be able to see the games.
Yeah.
Right? And that is, I want them to be able to, not only afford the games, because it's just a real challenge now with these incredible sporting events, but also specifically for our youth, to be able to see the games. These athletes are so incredibly inspiring. the Olympics does such an amazing job of telling their stories, and the stories you don't hear is like they on average make like $50,000 a year, right? And like they almost have to fund themselves to be these U.S. athletes, and the amount of work and dedication and commitment is, it's commendable and it's incredible. And every athlete has such an incredible story that is inspiring. And so I hope that we can actually afford to go to the games. We can get to the games. There's helicopters. That's going to be super cool. But that our youth really gets the opportunity to go and be inspired.
Thank you. Well, we'll do another round. I know I'm not alone in wishing we had more time with all of you. And this next round, I will start with you, Julie. We're going to do 2 lightning round questions, just run down the row. What's the last great thing you watched, read, or listened to that had nothing to do with work?
I basically finish TV every month, so The Diplomat on Netflix, I absolutely love.
It's a good one. All right, Brenda.
I just read Tuesdays with Maury.
All right, Maria.
I'm into cookbooks.
Oh, love it. And Jennifer.
I fantasize. I read the recipes and I
So you don't actually make the food, you just read the cookbook?
once in a while.
Once in a while? Oh, I got it. All right. That's awesome.
Jennifer.
I just read Isaac Asimov's I, Robot. It was written in 1950, and it is such a great look at all the conversations we're having about AI right now. And it's funny because he put the story in 2022 or something like that. But it's really fascinating. It's a fast read. I would highly recommend it.
Well, we're gonna stay with you. Final question. What's the one app on your phone that you can't live without?
My messaging app. I put Instagram, I changed the colors of all my apps, and I put Instagram way hidden because it was too addictive. And so I just like to text my friends.
I agree. I sympathize.
Same.
Okay.
Same.
Brenda?
Google Maps, because getting around LA is really, really hard.
It's the app that I'm using the most right now is Claude. So learning AI and getting smarter and better and more efficient. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for these amazing insights. I mean, I'm just so grateful to your time and your leadership and your example. I will take moderator privilege and close us out with one thing that I want to share, which is life is not without its obstacles and challenges, and particularly if you end up in the level of achievement that we have seen in front of us here. And to that end, look out for each other. Honor and respect the people who blaze the trail. Mentor the people who come behind you. And build yourself a cohort, because women helping women has gotten me through so much, and it's one of the most powerful things there is. So I just hope I leave you with that. Let's please give another round of applause for our panelists. Thank you.